There's a quiet moment many people experience but seldom discuss. It happens in stillness, in the gap between conversations, in that space where the world seems loud even when silence surrounds you. It's the moment someone realizes they feel more comfortable with space than with closeness, not from some grand rebellion against humanity, but because being around others feels heavier than it should. It drains them, confuses them, makes them question themselves. If you've ever felt that pull of hesitation before entering a room full of chatter, if you've ever taken the long way home to avoid running into someone, or if you've ever felt an unexpected pressure when asked a simple question, you already understand this feeling. It isn't hatred, not truly. It's something more intricate, more layered, something few admit aloud. Some individuals don't dislike people. They dislike what interactions bring out in them. They dislike the roles they feel pushed into, the expectations, the subtle emotional calculations they must constantly make, adjusting this part, hiding that part, softening a truth, altering an expression. Every moment becomes a negotiation between being genuine and being accepted. And for some, that negotiation becomes exhausting. To grasp the psychology behind this, you must look beyond common explanations. It's too simple to call someone introverted or socially reserved. The reality is more nuanced. Many who claim they dislike people are often among the most observant, sensitive, or thoughtful individuals. They don't dislike others in a literal sense. They dislike the emotional effort tied to engaging with them. Consider this: when someone enters a crowded room, their mind doesn't just see faces, it reads signals. The tone in a voice, the tension in posture, slight shifts in energy. Some process all of this rapidly and intensely. They absorb too much, they notice too much, and noticing too much can make the world feel overwhelmingly loud. It's like standing before 100 screens, each playing a different channel, all demanding your focus. Most don't experience the world this way, so they don't grasp how draining it can be. There's a concept in psychology called emotional overstimulation, not a disorder or a flaw, just a form of heightened sensitivity. Those who experience it often need more space than others. They aren't avoiding humanity. They're preserving themselves. They've learned that too much emotional input from the outside makes their inner world unsteady. So they pull back, not as rejection, but as self-regulation. Yet there's another layer, deeper than sensitivity. Some feel disconnected because people have been a source of confusion or disappointment in their past, not in dramatic ways, but in small, cumulative ways that leave a mark. Maybe they learned early that conversations carry hidden meanings. Maybe they encountered situations where kindness felt conditional, where words said one thing but meant another, where trust could vanish without warning. Over time, the safest place becomes distance, not isolation, but a buffer, a small emotional space where they can breathe without feeling watched, judged, or misunderstood. Then there's the expectation society places on everyone to be endlessly friendly, patient, and accessible. For some, this feels artificial. They aren't naturally energized by casual talk or surface-level exchanges. They prefer depth. They prefer truth. They want conversations with meaning, not interactions performed out of duty. And because such conversations are rare, they often choose solitude over shallow connection, not from dislike of humanity, but from a preference for authenticity. This creates a fascinating psychological paradox. Many who claim to dislike people actually crave connection, just not the kind they usually find. They want conversations where no one pretends. They want relationships where silence is comfortable. They want honesty without fear, closeness without pressure, affection without performance. These things exist, of course, but not everywhere, not with everyone. So until they find those who understand, they settle into solitude as a temporary shelter. Another aspect of this psychology is protective detachment. It happens when someone learns, consciously or not, that lowering their guard comes with an emotional cost. So they create a barrier, not a wall of anger, but a shield of caution. They move through the world quietly, carefully, observing more than participating. They seem distant, uninterested, even cold. But inside, a constant evaluation is happening. Is this safe? Is this genuine? Will this drain me? If the answer feels uncertain, they step back, and stepping back becomes a habit. What's especially interesting is that these individuals often have a rich inner world. Their thoughts are vivid, their imaginations deep, their reflections profound. Because their inner world is so full, the outer world feels less necessary. It's not that they reject connection, it just doesn't compete with the comfort of their own mind. Their solitude isn't empty, it's full of ideas, memories, reflections, possibilities. So when someone tries to pull them out of this inner world too quickly, they feel disrupted rather than included. There's a quiet truth here that many overlook. Solitude feels safe to those who have learned that being misunderstood is more painful than being alone. And for those who perceive the world with heightened sensitivity, misunderstanding is almost guaranteed. People mistake their silence for coldness, their calm for disinterest, their distance for rejection. In truth, these individuals often care deeply, they just express it differently. They care from afar, with thoughtfulness rather than noise. But here's something important to understand. They don't want to live in permanent distance. They want closeness, just a form that doesn't drain them. They want relationships where they can stay themselves without constantly adjusting. They want people who understand that silence isn't discomfort, but comfort, presence without pressure. Deep down, they hope to find someone who sees past their calm exterior and recognizes the depth beneath. People like this crave emotional freedom more than anything, freedom to feel, to think, to express themselves without performance. And because that freedom is rare, they protect themselves until they find it. You might think this tendency stems only from negative experiences, but interestingly, research shows the opposite can also be true. Some become overwhelmed not because they were hurt, but because they're naturally introspective. Their default state is inward. They gain clarity from reflection, not conversation. They recharge in quiet spaces. They access creativity through solitude. For them, social interaction is like visiting a busy street, interesting, even stimulating, but not a place to live. Another fascinating aspect is the difference in stimulation thresholds. Some thrive in energetic environments because their threshold for external stimulation is high. Others reach that threshold quickly. Their mind becomes crowded, their emotions cluttered. They need silence the way others need music, stillness the way others need movement. Asking them to socialize constantly is like asking someone to run a marathon every day. They could do it, but the cost would be immense. Still, why do some express this feeling as "I dislike people"? Why use such broad language for something so nuanced? Because for many, it's easier to blame the world than to explain their own complexity. But here's the quiet secret. Most who say they dislike people are incredibly compassionate, not loud or public compassion, but quiet compassion. They care deeply about fairness, respect, sincerity. They're affected by things others overlook. They feel emotions in high resolution. Their heart works overtime, even when their face shows nothing. There's also a unique self-awareness in people like this. They analyze their reactions, question their discomfort, examine their fears and patterns. They don't move through life on autopilot. They move with introspection, constantly asking why they feel what they feel. Sometimes that awareness itself becomes overwhelming. They feel too much inside to handle too much outside. But here's something often missed. Many who dislike people actually love humanity in a broader sense. They love human stories, creativity, resilience. They love observing people from a distance, understanding how minds work, learning what shapes identity. They simply struggle with up-close interactions, emotional demands, the unpredictability of personal relationships. They love humans as a concept, but but struggle with humans as a responsibility. This often makes them incredibly thoughtful. They don't enter relationships casually. They don't pretend to be connected when they're not. If they choose someone, friend, partner, or otherwise, it's because they feel genuinely safe. That's why their circle is small, not because they dislike people, but because they value authenticity so deeply that only a few truly fit. What's remarkable is that people with this mindset often become extraordinary listeners when they trust someone. Their quietness makes them attentive, their introspection makes them empathetic, their caution makes them gentle. They may not engage with many, but with the few they trust, they offer a profound connection. But before reaching that point, they navigate an internal struggle few notice. On one hand, they feel safer alone. On the other, they long for understanding. They want to protect their peace, yet wish they could experience closeness without feeling drained. They balance solitude and connection like a tightrope, trying not to fall too far to either side. And somewhere deep inside, they hope for a moment, a person, an experience that makes them rethink everything they believed about connection, something that makes closeness feel lighter, safer, more natural. Something that proves not everyone takes energy, some give it. Not everyone overwhelms, some bring calm. Not everyone confuses, some bring clarity. Until then, they carry this quiet emotional truth. Disliking people isn't really about people. It's about protection, energy, understanding their own limits, preserving the parts of themselves that feel too fragile to expose. And if anyone truly understood what goes on inside their mind, they'd realize something surprising. These individuals don't push people away because they feel nothing. They push people away because they feel everything. There comes a point in every person's life when they wonder whether their distance from others is a choice or a shield, a preference or a pattern. Those who often say they dislike people eventually reach this moment of self-reflection, usually late at night when the world is quiet enough for honest thoughts to surface. It's when they ask why being alone feels so natural while being surrounded feels exhausting, why small talk feels like work, why interaction feels like expectation, why conversations others enjoy feel like emotional puzzles to solve. For many, the answer lies in stories they rarely tell. Everyone carries experiences that shape their view of connection. Some learned that opening up meant being misunderstood. Others learned that expressing needs meant being dismissed. Some were criticized for their personality, others punished for their honesty. Over time, these small emotional injuries accumulate, not dramatically, but persistently, like drops of water carving a river through stone. Without realizing it, they begin to associate people with discomfort. But discomfort alone doesn't explain everything. There's another dimension, more subtle and psychological. Some simply require a different kind of social nourishment than the world typically offers. They don't thrive on crowds, noise, or constantly shifting atmospheres. They crave depth, not volume, authenticity, not performance. Spaces where they don't have to negotiate their identity. And because these spaces are rare, they retreat into themselves, not from bitterness, but necessity. It's like someone with specific dietary needs. They can't eat what everyone else eats, not because they dislike food, but because not all food feels good for them. Similarly, not all social interactions feel good for everyone. Some drain energy, create tension, force them into unnatural roles, so they avoid the emotional equivalent of unhealthy meals, and people mistake this for misanthropy. There's also something unique about the internal world of people who feel this way. Their inner voice is loud, thoughtful, analytical. They don't just experience emotions, they dissect them. They don't just observe behavior, they interpret it. This constant analysis creates emotional fatigue. When your mind is always working, always processing, always noticing subtleties others ignore, the presence of people becomes mentally demanding. Imagine someone who sees details most don't, not because they want to, but because they can't help it. They notice a flicker of disappointment in someone's eyes, a slight shift in tone, a hesitation, an unspoken expectation. They detect the tiniest inconsistencies in behavior. While this sensitivity makes them highly perceptive, it also makes them highly affected. The world feels heavy because nothing slips through unnoticed. This leads to something psychologists call anticipatory regulation, when someone adjusts themselves before a situation even happens. They imagine outcomes, potential misunderstandings, emotional risks, conversational demands. They rehearse interactions in their mind, analyzing how to respond to every possibility. By the time they actually speak to someone, they've already spent tremendous energy preparing. No wonder socializing feels tiring. Yet here's the part people rarely see. Individuals who function this way often long for ease. They long for relationships where they don't have to rehearse emotions, moments where they don't have to filter themselves, people who understand silence, depth, the way their mind works. It's not that they want to be alone forever. They just don't want to feel overwhelmed while trying to be close. Even with this longing, they've developed a quiet resilience. They've learned to be their own companion, to care for themselves without constant validation, to enjoy their own thoughts, to create an inner world where they feel understood. Because they've cultivated this solitude so deeply, any connection that disrupts it must be meaningful enough to be worth the disruption. One of the most misunderstood things about people who say they dislike people is that they rarely dislike individuals. They dislike the environment people create. They dislike chaos, emotional inconsistency, unpredictability, situations where they must constantly guess what someone means. They dislike the version of themselves they feel forced to become around others. Paradoxically, because of this, they often connect best with people who don't demand anything from them, people who don't take their stillness personally, who don't interpret distance as rejection, who offer presence rather than pressure. With those individuals, they open up naturally, effortlessly, even beautifully. Their softness appears, their humor emerges, their intelligence shines, their vulnerability becomes visible. The right people don't make them feel drained, they make them feel understood. But reaching that point requires something these individuals rarely give themselves: patience. Patience with their own discomfort, patterns, the slow process of trust. Many are so used to self-reliance that they forget connection is supposed to build gradually, not instantly. They assume if they don't feel safe right away, something is wrong. But safety isn't a lightning strike, it's a slow-growing fire. It takes time. There's also a need for relearning. Those who avoid others often operate based on old emotional rules, created by past experiences that no longer reflect their current life. Maybe they learned to stay quiet because speaking up once caused conflict, to withdraw because someone mocked their feelings, to hide their true personality because showing it led to rejection. These rules keep them protected but also disconnected. At some point, they must examine whether these rules still apply. Here's a surprising truth: many of these individuals aren't antisocial at all. They're profoundly social, but only under the right conditions. They value loyalty deeply, sincerity intensely, emotional safety more than almost anything. And when they find these things, they become some of the most committed and emotionally generous people you'll ever meet. But until then, they exist in an emotional limbo. They don't seek chaos, crowds, or superficial relationships. They move quietly through life, carefully choosing who gets access to their world, not because they think too highly of themselves, but because they've learned how much it costs to let someone in. There's also something poetic about these people. Their emotions run deep, their minds wander into places many never visit. They find meaning in silence, beauty in simplicity, comfort in solitude. They think before speaking, analyze before reacting, observe before judging. While the world often rewards loudness, they are powered by depth. If you spend time with someone like this, you notice something subtle. They experience life in slow motion, not literally, but emotionally. They feel things deeply before expressing them, reflect before responding, internalize before engaging. This slow emotional processing can make fast-paced social situations overwhelming, like asking a painter to finish a masterpiece in 5 minutes. It's not impossible, but it goes against their natural rhythm, and their rhythm matters. Everyone moves through the world at a different emotional speed. Some thrive in rapid exchanges, others require time. People who think they dislike people are often just people who move at a slower emotional pace. When forced into faster rhythms, they lose balance. When allowed to move slowly, they flourish. Another major piece of this psychology comes from how they interpret emotions, both their own and others. Many in this category are highly empathetic, but not in the conventional sense. Their empathy is quiet and internal. They feel others' emotions almost as if they were their own, and because empathy requires energy, feeling too much drains them. It's not people they dislike, it's the emotional overflow people unintentionally bring. So they create boundaries that look like distance. They protect their emotional bandwidth, choose where to invest attention, pull back when their inner world becomes too full. This isn't rejection, it's emotional management. But here's the irony. The more they protect themselves, the more misunderstood they become. People assume they're cold or indifferent, but indifference is the opposite of what they feel. If anything, they feel too much, too intensely, too deeply. And because they don't always express it, their depth becomes invisible. The world doesn't often reward quietness. It misinterprets it, overlooks it, forgets it. But quiet people aren't empty, they're overflowing. Their silence isn't a lack of thought, but a lack of noise. Their distance isn't a rejection of others, but an embrace of themselves. Yet beneath all this, there exists an unspoken hope. A hope that one day they won't need to defend their energy, that they'll find people who bring peace instead of pressure, that connection will feel like warmth instead of obligation. They hope the right person will understand that their silence is trust, not withdrawal, that their distance is self-protection, not disinterest, that their solitude is healing, not rejection. Because people who dislike people don't actually want to live behind emotional walls forever. They want someone who knocks gently, who stays long enough for the wall to lower on its own, who doesn't rush their openness, who understands that their heart is slow to trust because it's careful, not closed. Slowly, when the right connection enters their life, something shifts. The world feels a little less loud, conversations a little less demanding, the emotional weight lighter. They laugh more freely, speak more openly, share more honestly. Their once guarded inner world becomes a place they allow someone else to witness. That's the true psychology behind people who say they dislike people. It's not a rejection of humanity, it's a longing for the right humanity. It's not emotional coldness, it's emotional sensitivity. It's not aloofness, it's self-preservation. It's not judgment, it's discernment. And maybe, just maybe, if the world understood this, fewer people would feel the need to hide behind distance. They wouldn't be labeled antisocial or unfriendly. They'd be seen for what they truly are: thoughtful, sensitive, perceptive individuals navigating a world that often moves too loudly, too quickly, too carelessly for their inner rhythm. Because deep down, even the most distant person carries a simple desire: to be understood without having to explain everything, to be accepted without having to perform, to be cared for without having to exhaust themselves, to be close to others without losing themselves. And when that desire is finally met, when someone shows them that connection can be soft, steady, and safe, something remarkable happens. They realize they never disliked people, they just needed the right ones. If this resonated with you, feel free to subscribe for more insights. Liking and sharing the video helps others discover this content too. Met, when someone shows them that connection can be soft, steady, and safe, something remarkable happens. They realize they never disliked people, they just needed the right ones. If this resonated with you, feel free to subscribe for more insights. Liking and sharing the video helps others discover this content too.